Most of the times when I pick a spot to go metal detecting, I do my best to find it near a water source. In 1812, you didn't turn on your tap to get a drink of water. You had to drink out of a river, or a creek, or a waterfall.
Welcome, Hamilton, to Battlefield Park for the 5th episode and season finale of Dirt Fishing.
It's us against the mosquitoes from the War of 1812.
We've saved the best for last.
I would imagine the troops went by here.
Pop, look at the back.
Watch as Mike Relics and his guest, the digging Canuck,
I'm really excited about this.
pull some surprising historic treasures
Isn't that cool?
which may have been left over from the iconic Battle of Stoney Creek.
Mike, I found your banging signal.
Got her.
The soldiers' buttons are made of lead and tin.
Also, you'll be amazed by our special guest, a museum expert who'll share his knowledge about the June 6, 1813 battle.
The Americans figure, oh my goodness, we have lost our commanders. They were also concerned about the whooping that they figured were from indigenous allies.
Finally, we show how Mike and the Canucks' amazing find from that time period may have made its way to its resting place close to the battlefield site.
Hamilton, Ontario, Mike Relics coming at you. Today we're actually in Stoney Creek, Ontario. Now, you might recognize the property that I'm walking up to right now. It's beautiful, it's historic, but it's also protected. So we're obviously not going to dig here today because it's a historic site. The battle happened here, but all the relics do not have to be just here. In order to get to the battle, you would have camped out, you would have eaten on the escarpment, you would have traveled the escarpment with your troops. So we're going to get in our vehicles and we're going to drive about 10 or 15 minutes away from this specific site on the escarpment. And guys, we have no idea what we're gonna find out there. It could be a coin, it could be a relic from the war. You just never know as a metal detectorist. So behind me, we have the battlefield house, built in 1796. Now the Battle of Stoney Creek, it was the War of 1812, but the War of 1812 actually went on for a couple of years. So it was 1812 to about 1814. So the Battle of Stoney Creek right here actually happened on June 6, 1813. So over 200 years ago, an epic battle right on these grounds. Wonderful piece of history. Not a war you would have wanted to been in. It was one of the beginning of trench warfare. Just not a good place to be honest with you. I believe the War of 1812, it was maybe America versus Great Britain, something like that. I believe it was over a maritime conflict. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to the Digging Canuck. You'll find her on our YouTube channel, The Digging Canuck. We've never met, we've never dug together. This is the first time. We've known each other through the circles, but here we are. Let's shake it out. Here we are. So today I brought The Digging Canuck with me. Liz, we're gonna go hit the forest and we're gonna see if we can't get some bucket listers underneath our coils.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching. Mike Relics. So we are now, Liz, we're about 2 kilometers away from Battlefield House, so we've left the historic site.
The first thing that the British encountered on their way to Stoney Creek was a contingent of American riflemen who were holed up just to the west of where we are today, who apparently were all asleep at the time that the British encountered them. The British entered the building and bayoneted several, if not all of them, and then quietly moved on. And they saw a line of campfires and figured that they had found a major part of the American encampment. So they charged forward in amongst the campfires and realized that there was just campfires there. The Americans had actually moved their line further eastwards. And so the British were left sort of out of sorts, fully visible now to the American troops farther eastward. And then the main battle started. The Americans fired their artillery, the infantry started firing as well.
All right, let's do this. Yeah. Let's do this.
Okay, I'm gonna dig. Liz, good luck. Let's see if there's any history out here.
All right.
Here's my little tributary path.
In the lead up to 1812, America was a neutral trading nation, and the British saw that as a means for America to deliver the materials of war to Napoleonic France, who Britain was at war with at that time between 1793 and 1815. So they proceeded to stop American shipping, in some cases boarding and searching, in some cases firing across their bows to get them to stop. They were taking deserters, they presumed deserters from the Royal Navy off of American ships.
One of the holy grails for a metal detectorist is actually a cannonball. Everyone's kind of dream is a gold coin and a cannonball.
That's a fired cartridge from probably a 22, but it could be old in that it's a rimfire cartridge. It's a rimfire because that's in the olden days how they used to fire bullets. The hammer on the gun would hit the side right there.
Here's a really cool trick, actually. Sometimes these downed trees, back in the early 1900s or the 1800s, I don't obviously recommend doing it on a live tree, but if you run your detector over them, sometimes you can pull out old bullets from the downed tree, because they would have been shooting bullets here in the 1800s.
So in the spring of 1813, the war had been going on since June 18th, 1812. The Americans had done very poorly in 1812, and so they were looking at a loss of public support in the United States for the war. So they sought out to capture an easy target, and that ended up being what we think of as Toronto today, what was called as York, a muddy little place with poor fortifications and about 700 people.
Come on, baby. I know you're here. Well, great signal again, but because it's so quiet, I'm gonna check out to see what we got here. It's pretty big, actually. Ah, here we go. Always dig up your iron. Check this out. Now that is cool. Wow. So this is wild. So this is what they would have used even to clear the trees out of here. So this would have been, this is pretty much like finding a horseshoe in the forest of Hamilton. Look at this. Beautiful chain links. Look at the chain links on that. So when we dig up stuff like this, so when I said I'm going to come out here and dig up some iron, this is what we're hoping to find. So this is what they would have used to clear the trees out. This is very horse related, I'd say. There was no semi-tow trucks in this forest. It was all horses cleared, built houses with it. So that's a really, really cool piece of history. So this is what I'm looking for when I'm digging up iron. Check that out, Hamilton. Look at the hook on that. Just a beauty. Nice piece of history. Cool, that was nice.
The British troops abandoned Fort York and made their way to Kingston, and the Americans moved on to their next target, which was Fort George, which they attacked on May 27th, literally a month later, which they also attacked by shipborne invasion. And at that point, the British retired from Fort George. They pulled all of their troops out of the Niagara River posts from Fort Erie to Fort George, and they moved westwards and ended up, the main body of the troops ended up in, or at where Dundurn Castle is today, a site called Burlington Heights, and they managed that by May 31st. And a short 5 days later, the Americans had made their way to the site where we are filming today, which is Stoney Creek.
So how are you doing out there?
It's very, very quiet. I gotta say, it's very, extremely quiet. Not too much.
I mean, very quiet is so rare these days.
Yeah, I know. It's actually kind of nice because your ears.
I know.
Your
It
ears
gives
get
you
a
that
little bit of a
break from, and even so, even when it's quiet, you could dig even the bad signals
Yes.
because you just never know. So that's why I ended
Exactly.
up with the iron hook. All right, I got a big, not a great signal in here, but just because of the lack of signals, we can dig them all. This is the reason I brought the shovel today, is because I knew we were going to hit these rocks. right, Hamilton, here we go. This is really cool. The felling wedge is a great piece of tool, man. So you would use your axe, you would jam this in it, and the tree would fall whichever way you wanted it to fall. Obviously, it may not be the best for splitting firewood and stuff, because you'd have to swing a hammer at it. You'd rather use an axe, but yeah, this is an absolute beauty, a felling wedge. The steel that this is made out of, whoa, now that's some strong steel. What's that?
I think I dug a religious pendant.
What'd she say?
A religious pendant.
Get out. Get out.
I think I've dug my very, very first religious pendant. Now, I've been digging for quite some time and I've never dug one, but I'm pretty sure. I'll show you. This is, I scooped it out just like this. It's in my hand. I have not looked at it. Oh, that looks like a pendant to me. I think it is. I think that's a religious pendant. This could be a bucket lister for me. I think Jesus is on there. I'm actually really excited. It looks like there's that might be a guardian angel on there. I'm not sure. I've never dug a religious pendant like cheapo or anything, so that's looking pretty nice.
Super cool. I mean, that's kind of looking. Maybe the chain's in there.
Oh, don't say that.
That's how it works too when you're out digging with somebody else. You just get that, hey, over here call, and then you know to go over and it's going to be something exciting. So it's just as fun if the guy beside you pulls something out.
I'm going to find my own spot. We're not supposed to poach. Detectorists don't poach.
All right, come on, banging signal. You always want to keep your metal detector close to the ground.
Here's your banging signal.
Get out! No! Oh my God, I'm so happy. Let's go check it out. And this is how you do it. You share your signals.
Right there.
It's in a good spot.
It's not like super duper,
yeah. But. Whoa, and it's deep. It is a little jumpy. And it's small. Whoa, I like it.
There you go. My gift to Mike.
I like it. That's small. Small, good signal.
How's it going?
Morning. Morning.
Good morning.
All right, and then we're going to dig this up. She's actually kind of pretty. All right, here we go. I'm going to double check where the signal is again. It was given to me by the digging Canuck. She walked away. She has a religious pendant. We're going to share the wealth. All right. She's there. Let's check this out. I got a nice, it says it's nice and deep, which is good. We're looking at about 6 inches. So, get through a couple of these rocks here. And then, what we're looking for on these, when I say a banging signal, what we're looking for is a small signal with nothing around it. So you run your machine around it, you run it over it, and once you've isolated it, whoa, it's a good feeling. So obviously Liz had a signal here, she's isolated it, it still sounded good, and that's why she's called me up. I heard you. Okay, so, oh, I shouldn't have done that. All right, so I'm gonna say I own it. She's in the hand. Oh, it's a 50 cal musket ball.
Get out. Get out. Get out. No, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's a huge one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Are you kidding me? Oh my god.
It's been fired and hit something. It's a beauty.
Oh.
And that's why it was a little bit of a jumpy signal. You remember saying last episode when lead's in the ground for a long time, it turns white?
Oh my gosh,
that is
no
gorgeous.
way. Oh wow.
Look at the size of that.
Holy moly, that is huge.
I know. That's the biggest one I've seen.
Holy.
And it's hit something.
Oh, definitely. My God.
Wow.
Can you imagine getting
Yeah,
whacked
you
with
don't
that?
want to get hit with that. So,
You know what? I would say
War of
good-
1812.
good chance. Very
It's a
good chance.
very good chance. So, obviously, we're going to have to bring in a bullet expert now. This is beautiful. It's been in the ground for a long time. There is a good chance for the neighborhood we're in that it is a lead musket ball. And wow. Share the wealth, Liz.
Oh
Got her. So this is the reason when she first brought me over, she said it's a banging signal. Nice small signal, she said, but it's not perfect. So, and this is why it was lead. Look how old that looks.
That's nice.
white. That's old.
Nice and white. Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. And the size.
That's a nice one.
She's a beast.
That's a big musket ball.
I can tell you right now, you wouldn't want to get hit with this. Wow.
I honestly can't
Very
believe
impressive.
I seriously
My
can't
bag,
believe that.
my bag is has some good stuff in it, man.
this. Can't believe that.
So we're showing them right now that it's not all about the coins.
Oh gosh, no.
That's wild.
When you said musket ball, I thought you were joking.
It's a wild piece of history. So we can see it's been hit. So this is what it hit. We have no idea what it hit. Was it an animal? Was it a soldier from the War of 1812? We just don't know. Wild. This is one of the bigger ones you can dig. I think it's probably the biggest one you can
that's a
dig.
69.
Yeah, it might be.
I
Yeah,
think I might
yeah.
be 69. Wow.
Very pretty.
Wow, that, right there, that's what metal detecting is about,
It's
is finding
about
history. And number 2, finding it with a friend.
Yeah, exactly.
And number 3, sharing it.
Exactly.
With
That
a
was
friend.
that was awesome. That was
That's
awesome.
totally
Yeah,
what
that was
metal
cool, eh?
That is what metal detecting is all
That
about.
was awesome.
Wonderful.
Super well done. Right off the side of the path, man. So we're now we're gonna talk to the producers. We're gonna change the name to Dirt Fishing with Digging Canuck.
And your musket ball, which has been measured, interestingly enough, is very, very close to 0.69 of an inch in diameter. And you can see, if I drop it down, it fits very, very nicely, perfectly, as a matter of fact. And that, of course, is, as I say, very interesting. Now, we know that this was found in the general area of the Battle of Stoney Creek. Meanwhile, apparently it was found up on the escarpment, and we have no indication that any part of the battle occurred up in that location. Nevertheless, it does seem that this is a very, very good fit and may well be a British musket ball. Now, a musket itself, when you are using it, in order to fire it, of course, the musket ball is only one part of the cartridge itself. It's a tube of paper about as big around as my thumb and about that long, and it has a gunpowder charge with the lead ball in it. So to load a musket, you're actually going to push forward the hammer. You're going to tear open the cartridge with your teeth, spit the paper out, and pour a little bit of gunpowder inside of what's called the pan. That's this section right there. Then you close the hammer over top of it, maintaining a grip on the cartridge. And so what you've just done is prime the musket. Then you're going to take the rest of the cartridge and pour it down the barrel and push the musket ball down inside the paper. And then you're going to take the rammer and you're going to transfer everything from the muzzle end, all the way down to the breech end. So you've got gunpowder with paper and the ball all sitting at the base here of the breech end. Then you're going to return your rammer. If you leave your rammer in, you'll fire it downrange, and then while the musket isn't useless after that, it is, you don't get the same compaction and less explosive capacity, lesser range, and so on. So again, remembering there's gunpowder with paper and a ball sitting on top of it. And at this end as well, you've got a flint, very, very sharp, on the caulk itself. And when you pull it to the rear, what you're essentially doing is putting some tension on a spring, and when you pull the trigger, it releases the spring. And what's going to happen when I pull the trigger is that the flint in the jaws of the caulk is going to fly forward, strike the hammer, and pour sparks into the pan. Now, the pan right beside it has a little vent hole right here. And that leads from the pan inside to where all that gunpowder is compacted at the breech end of the weapon. So I'm going to demonstrate for you. Hopefully we'll see the sparks fly. We've got a pretty good sharp flint here. So the sparks fall into the powder in the pan and ignite it. And you get a flash. And hopefully some of that flash is going to go through the little vent hole into where the main charge is. And so that will set off a second explosion, and that's what propels the musket ball downrange out of the barrel in the general direction of the enemy. Now, the musket balls that the British used were about 0.69 in diameter to fit into a 0.73 or 0.75 of an inch, by the way, barrel. So if you're detecting with the musket, there are several different types of metal that are associated with it, copper alloy and lead and steel, just as the uniforms themselves. The officer's button, for instance, is a copper alloy base with gilding on top of it, just as the belt plate is brass with some gilding, and lace itself, which is made of gold wire, may also survive. The soldiers' buttons are made of lead and tin, pewter. The plates are brass. These are the sorts of materials you're going to end up finding. Now, if you do find a concentration of these sorts of metals, it might be best to hold off digging them up. Under the Ontario Heritage Act, it's not illegal to detect, but it is illegal to put a shovel into the ground. And if you do detect and you do remove something from the ground and you find out and you think it might have something to do with an important heritage site like Battlefield House, Museum and Park, which is a National Historic Site of Canada, contact an expert. forward elements of the Americans had, which would have been light cavalry and some light infantry troops, ran into the detachment of the 49th Regiment, about 70 men strong. The 49th, recognizing they were going to be overwhelmed, fired and retired all the way back to Burlington Heights to let General Vincent, the commander of the Central Division of the British Army, now stationed at Burlington Heights, know that that was the case. And using that information, plus other intelligence gathered by various sources, Vincent, on behalf of the British, had a very important decision to make. He could either sit at Burlington Heights with between 1,500 and 1,600 men and defend against an American army that he didn't know might end up being as many as 7,000 to 8,000 men attacking. He had no fortifications except for some very rudimentary basic field fortifications to defend against. And so he decided to go with what's called a forlorn hope.